The emergency broadcast crackled across every communication channel in the galaxy, its priority override cutting through commercial transmissions, diplomatic communications, and entertainment networks alike, on 10,000 worlds, in space stations, orbiting distant suns, aboard cargo vessels traversing the void between stars. Beings of countless species stopped what they were doing to listen. Priority alert, Galactic Missing Persons Network. In the past 72 standard hours, 847 children from 23 different species have been reported missing across 156 star systems. Initial investigations indicate no natural disaster, no evidence of conventional kidnapping, and no communication from potential captors. All missing individuals are between the ages of 6 and 16. In their respective species development cycles, the broadcast continued with technical details, last known locations, physical descriptions, requests for information. But as the alert concluded and normal transmissions resumed, an eerie silence seemed to settle over the galaxy's information networks. No emergency mobilization orders, no calls for volunteers, no frantic coordination between worlds. The galaxy, it seemed, had heard the news and collectively shrugged. On Earth, in the cramped communications center of Luna Station 7, Captain Elena Santos stared at the message display with growing disbelief. Around her, other human officers and civilians read the same reports, their faces reflecting the same mixture of horror and confusion that Elena felt building in her chest. 847 children, she said quietly, her voice cutting through the station's background hum. In 3 days, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, seated at the adjacent console, looked up from her own display. There's got to be some kind of response being organized. This is huge. It's unprecedented. Elena's fingers moved across her console, pulling up additional reports from the Galactic Communication Network. What she found made her stomach clench with a cold, familiar fear, the same feeling she'd experienced years ago, when her own daughter had gone missing during a hiking trip on Europa. The terror of not knowing, of time slipping away while precious lives hung in the balance. Look at this, she said, her voice tight. Proxima Command says they're monitoring the situation. The Centauri Defense Force has issued a statement about maintaining vigilance in their sector. The Vegan Trade Consortium is reviewing security protocols. That's good, right? Park asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. No. Elena replied, pulling up more reports. That's bureaucratic speak for we're not actually doing anything. They're monitoring, reviewing, maintaining vigilance. None of them are searching, as if to confirm her worst fears. Elena's console chimed with an incoming priority message from the Galactic Council of Worlds. She opened it with trembling fingers, already knowing what she would find. Emergency Council. Session Resolution 2847 Delta. Following careful analysis of the recent missing persons reports, the Council has determined that while the situation is regrettable, the statistical impact represents less than 0.003% of the galactic juvenile population. Given current military commitments and resource constraints, large-scale search operations are deemed economically unfeasible. Member worlds are advised to implement local security measures and report any developments through standard channels. Elena read the message twice, then a third time, unable to believe what she was seeing. Around the communications center, other humans were receiving similar reports from their respective governments. The galaxy's response to 847 missing children was a collective decision that they weren't worth the effort to find. They're not going to look for them, Park whispered, her face pale. 800 kids. And they're not even going to try. Elena stood abruptly, her chair rolling backward. Into the console behind her, 38 years old, a veteran of the Human Colonial Defense Force, mother of 2 children who were safe in their beds back on Earth. And she felt a rage building inside her that threatened to consume rational thought. Captain, Park asked. Tentatively, their children, Elena said, her voice steady, but carrying an undercurrent of steel that made several nearby officers look up. They're children, and somewhere out there, they're scared and alone and probably crying for their parents. And the galaxy has decided that's acceptable. She turned to face the rest of the communications center, her decision crystallizing with each word. Not humanity. We don't abandon children. We never abandon children. Lieutenant Commander Park stood as well, understanding beginning to dawn in her eyes. Captain, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that if the galaxy won't look for these kids, then humans will. All of them, every single one. The response from the Galactic Council came faster than Elena had expected. Ambassador Keth Myra of the Ethereal Collective, the current rotating president of the council, appeared via holographic transmission in Elena's ready room barely for hours after she had submitted her formal request for human-led search and rescue operations. Keth Myra was beautiful in the way that ethereals always were, tall, graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between silver and gold depending on the light. Her species had transcended most physical limitations centuries ago, existing as beings of pure energy contained within carefully crafted synthetic bodies. They were among the galaxy's oldest and most advanced civilizations, and their perspective on biological concerns like missing children reflected that evolutionary distance. Captain Santos, Keth Myra began, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested she was simultaneously conducting several other conversations. I understand you wish to discuss the recent missing persons incident. Elena repeated, struggling to keep her voice level. Ambassador, we're talking about 847 children. Indeed, a regrettable situation, but one that must be viewed in proper context. Keth Myra's form flickered slightly as she accessed data streams. The galactic juvenile population exceeds 2.8 trillion individuals. The missing persons represent a statistical anomaly of approximately 0.0003%. While any loss of life is unfortunate, the allocation of significant resources to address such a minor deviation would be economically irrational. Elena felt her hands clench into fists. Those aren't statistics, they're children, somebody's sons and daughters. Of course, Keth Myra agreed with the tone of someone humoring an emotional outburst. And their families have our sympathy. However, Captain, you must understand that galactic governance requires pragmatic decision-making. We cannot mobilize fleets and divert resources from critical operations for every localized emergency. 800 kids disappearing across 150 star systems isn't localized. In galactic terms, it is quite localized indeed. Keth Myra's expression remained placidly sympathetic. Captain, I understand that humans have certain emotional responses to situations involving offspring. It's a primitive but understandable biological imperative. However, evolved civilizations must move beyond such instinctual reactions in favor of logical resource allocation. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Primitive, instinctual, as if caring about missing children was some kind of evolutionary flaw that humanity hadn't outgrown. So you're saying no, Elena said quietly. I'm saying that the Council has made its decision based on careful analysis of costs, benefits, and strategic priorities. The missing individuals are most likely deceased. Statistical analysis suggests that undiscovered abductions of this scale typically result in 97.3% fatality rates within the first week. Deploying search teams at this point would be an inefficient allocation of resources. With minimal probability of success, Elena stood slowly, her chair creaking in the sudden silence of her ready room. Ambassador, with all due respect, you can take your statistical analysis and your resource allocation and your evolved civilization, and you can shove them up your synthetic ass. Keth Myra blinked, a curiously human gesture from a being who didn't technically need to blink. I beg your pardon, you heard me. Humanity formally withdraws from galactic oversight of this situation. We'll find these kids ourselves, Captain Santos. Surely you understand that unauthorized military operations across multiple sovereign territories. The first message was from Dr. James Fletcher, a xenobiologist and child psychologist stationed on Proxima Colony. Captain Santos, I volunteer for search operations. My expertise with interspecies child development may be useful. When do we start? The second was from Commander Marcus Webb, currently on leave from the Colonial Defense Force. Elena, I've got a ship and a crew. Just say the word. The third was from Maya Chen, A 24-year-old engineer whose sister had been among the missing children. Captain, my sister Lily was taken from our family's research station 3 days ago. She's only 8 years old. Please, tell me how I can help. Elena read message after message, each one a human volunteer willing to risk everything to search for children they'd never met, from species they might not even recognize. Engineers, doctors, soldiers, pilots, scientists, hundreds of humans offering their skills, their ships, their lives for a cause that the galaxy had already written off as economically unfeasible. She thought of her own children, safe on Earth, and wondered what kind of galaxy they were growing up in if 847 missing kids could be dismissed as a statistical anomaly. The answer was simple, not the kind of galaxy humanity would accept. Elena opened a new communication channel, broadcasting on all human frequencies. This is Captain Elena Santos, Colonial Defense Force. Humanity is organizing independent search and rescue operations for all missing children, regardless of species. We're not asking for permission, and we're not waiting for approval. Any human willing to volunteer should report to Luna Station 7 within 48 hours. We have children to find. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, ships began arriving at Luna Station from across human space, not military vessels. The Colonial Defense Force couldn't officially support unauthorized operations, but private ships, corporate transports, research vessels, even modified passenger liners, all crewed by humans who had decided that 847 missing children was 847 too many. Dr. James Fletcher arrived aboard the research vessel Curiosity, bringing with him a team of xenobiologists and child development specialists. Commander Marcus Webb came with the converted cargo hauler Second Chance, along with 24 ex-military volunteers. Maya Chen arrived with nothing but a single bag and a determination that burned like a star. Elena assembled them in Luna Station's largest conference room, looking out at faces that represented humanity's best and brightest. Scientists and soldiers, engineers and doctors, civilians and military personnel united by a simple conviction. Children mattered. All children, even alien children that their own species had abandoned. We're not going to lie to ourselves about what we're facing. Elena began, activating a holographic display that showed the galactic map with red markers, indicating the missing children's last known locations. 847 kids, scattered across 156 star systems. No official support, no access to military resources, and the distinct possibility that we'll be labeled as criminals for conducting unauthorized operations in sovereign space. She paused, studying the faces around her. The council thinks they're probably dead. The odds say we'll find nothing but corpses if we find anything at all. And every day we wait, those odds get worse. So why are we here? Asked Dr. Fletcher, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Because they're children. Elena replied simply, because somewhere out there, kids are scared and alone and crying for their parents. Because every species in this galaxy, except humanity, has decided that's acceptable. And because if we don't try, no one will. She gestured to the display, zooming in on the first cluster of disappearances. Maya, your sister was taken from a research station in the Vega system. That's where we start. Dr. Fletcher, I need you to analyze the pattern of disappearances. There has to be some selection criteria we're missing. Commander Webb, you're our tactical coordinator. Everyone else, you're here because you have skills. We need our ships we can use or both. What about the legal issues? Asked someone from the back. If we cross into sovereign space without authorization, then we deal with the consequences later. Elena cut him off. I'd rather face a tribunal for saving children than sleep peacefully knowing we let them die. Because we were worried about paperwork. The room fell silent as the weight of the decision settled over them. They were about to embark on operations that could destroy their careers, their lives, their freedom. All for children they'd never met, from species some of them had never even encountered. All right, Elena said finally, let's go find some kids. The Wanderer was humanity's newest search and rescue vessel, a sleek ship designed for long-range operations in hostile environments. It had been Elena's command for the past 2 years, conducting rescue operations throughout human space. Now, as it departed Luna Station with a crew of 37 volunteers, it was about to become the flagship of humanity's unauthorized mission to save the galaxy's abandoned children. First stop, Vega System, Elena announced as the ship entered. Hyperspace, Maya. I want you to walk us through everything that happened when your sister disappeared. Maya Chen stood at the center of the ship's briefing room, her young face marked by the kind of exhaustion that came from 3 days of constant fear. Lily was at our family's xenobiology research station on Vega 4. It's a small facility, just 12 people studying the planet's unique ecosystem. 3 nights ago, she went to bed in her quarters like always. The next morning, she was gone. Security footage asked Commander Webb. Nothing. The internal monitoring systems show her entering her room at 20:30 hours. The next recording shows her quarters empty at 06:00 the following day. No indication of how she left or when. Dr. Fletcher leaned forward. Was there anything unusual about Lily? Any reason someone might specifically target her? Maya's expression darkened. She's special, gifted. Her IQ tests above 100, and she has this incredible intuitive understanding of alien psychology. She can predict behavioral patterns in non-human species with startling accuracy. How old is she again? 8. She'll be 9 next month. Maya's voice caught slightly. She loves xenobiology, just like our parents. She says she wants to understand every species in the galaxy. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Dr. Fletcher, have you found any common characteristics among the missing children? Fletcher activated his own display, showing profiles of the disappeared. It's preliminary, but there are patterns: above average intelligence, advanced development for their age, and something else. Many of them show unusual aptitude for cross-species communication or understanding. You think they're being targeted for their abilities? It's possible. If someone wanted to recruit or use children with specific talents, these would be prime candidates. The implication hung in the air like a dark cloud. Elena had seen human trafficking operations before, but the idea of kidnappers targeting children across multiple species for their intellectual abilities was something new and deeply disturbing. "Captain," came a voice from the ship's communications station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Vega System Traffic Control. Put it through." The image that appeared on the main screen was distinctly non-human. A Centaurian traffic controller with the characteristic blue skin and elongated cranium of his species. His expression was harried and unwelcoming. "Unknown human vessel. You are entering Vegan territorial space without proper authorization. State your business immediately or prepare to be escorted out." Of the system, Elena stepped forward. "This is Captain Elena Santos of the human vessel Wanderer. We're here investigating the disappearance of Lily Chen and any other missing children in your system." The Centaurian's expression shifted to something between confusion and irritation. "The missing persons incident has been classified as resolved. The individual in question is presumed deceased. No further investigation is warranted. Resolved." Maya stepped into view of the camera, her voice sharp with anger. "My sister has been missing for 3 days, and you've decided she's dead? Based on statistical analysis and resource allocation priorities, continued search operations are not All right, people, we're officially unwelcome. That means we do this quietly and quickly. Maya, take us to your family's research station. Dr. Fletcher, I want you to examine everything. The girls' quarters, the security systems, the surrounding area. Look for anything the local authorities might have missed." "What if they really did miss something?" asked Webb. "What if the locals just didn't look hard enough? Then we find it." Elena said simply, "Because that's what you do when children are missing. You keep looking until you find them or until you're absolutely certain there's nothing left to find." The Vega for Research Station was a modest facility built into the side of a dormant volcano, its architecture designed to blend with the planet's unique crystalline formations. As the Wanderer approached, Elena could see the scorch marks on the landing pad where Vegan security forces had conducted their investigation, a cursory sweep that had lasted less than 6 hours. There, Maya pointed to a small window about 30 meters up the station's main structure. That was Lily's room. Dr. Fletcher was already scanning with his portable sensors. I'm picking up residual energy signatures, very faint, but definitely artificial. Someone used advanced technology here recently. The security sweep asked Webb. No, this is different, older, I'd say, 3 to 4 days ago. Elena felt her pulse quicken. The night she disappeared, they landed and made their way into the station, where Maya's parents waited with the exhausted expressions of people who had spent 3 days in hell. Dr. Chen was a small, nervous man with graying hair, while his wife was taller and shared Maya's determined features. Any word? Dr. Chen asked immediately. We're just starting, Elena replied gently. Can you show us Lily's room? The girls' quarters were small but comfortable, filled with the kinds of things an 8-year-old genius might collect: alien artifacts, scientific instruments, books in a dozen different languages. Everything looked normal except for one detail that made Elena's skin crawl. The bed was perfectly made. Maya, she said carefully, does your sister usually make her bed? Maya's parents exchanged glances. Never, her mother said quietly. We've been trying to get her to clean up after herself for years. She leaves her room looking like a tornado hit it. Dr. Fletcher was running his scanner over every surface. Captain, I'm getting much stronger readings here. Definitely artificial energy. Definitely the night she disappeared. And there's something else. What? Cellular traces, skin cells, hair follicles. But they're not human. Elena felt ice forming in her stomach. What species? Unknown. The genetic markers don't match anything in my database. They spent 6 hours going over every centimeter of the station, finding more traces of the unknown aliens, and evidence of technology far beyond anything the local authorities possessed. But no sign of Lily herself, and no clue where she might have been taken. We need to check the other disappearances, Elena decided as they prepared to leave. See if there's a pattern we can follow. But as they lifted off from Vega 4, Maya remained at the observation port, staring down at the research station that had been her sister's home. She's out there somewhere, she said quietly. I can feel it. She's alive, and she's scared, and she's waiting for someone to find her. Elena put a hand on the young woman's shoulder. We'll find her. All of them. That's a promise. What Elena didn't say was that with each hour that passed, keeping that promise was going to get harder. The energy signatures Dr. Fletcher had detected suggested technology beyond anything most galactic civilizations possessed. Whoever had taken these children had resources and capabilities that dwarfed anything humanity could bring to bear. But humanity had something else. They had the inability to give up. They had the stubborn, illogical, economically unfeasible determination to keep searching for lost children, even when the entire galaxy said it was pointless. Elena just hoped it would be enough. The next 72 hours took the Wanderer to 6 different star systems, following a trail of missing children and increasingly sophisticated abduction sites. Each location told the same story: children with exceptional abilities vanishing without a trace, local authorities conducting cursory investigations before writing the cases off as unsolvable, and the same unidentifiable alien technology leaving its signature behind. Dr. Fletcher had compiled profiles of 37 missing children across the systems they'd visited. The pattern was becoming clear and deeply disturbing. Look at this, he said, projecting the data in the ship's briefing. Room, Zara Velthi, age 7, Andorian. Telepathic abilities tested at the 99th percentile for her species, taken from her family's diplomatic compound on Rigel 7. He scrolled to the next profile. Marcus Cliven, age 10, Centaurian. Mathematical prodigy who solved theoretical physics, problems that graduate students struggle with. Disappeared from his school on Alpha Centauri B. Carrie Thax, age 12, Vulcani. Showed remarkable intuitive understanding of alien psychology and behavior patterns. Vanished from a youth science camp on Procyon 4. Elena studied the profiles, feeling a growing sense of horror. They're collecting them. Someone is specifically targeting gifted children from different species. But why? Asked Maya. What could anyone want with children, even gifted ones? Dr. Fletcher's expression was grim. I've been researching that question, and I don't like the answers I'm finding. There are certain theoretical applications for developing neural systems that adult brains simply can't achieve, meaning that if someone wanted to study consciousness, enhance cognitive abilities, or experiment with neural interfaces, children's brains would be far more adaptable than adult ones. The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just dealing with kidnapping. They were looking at some kind of systematic exploitation of children for their developing minds. "Captain," the ship's communications officer, called from the bridge, "We're receiving a priority transmission. It's unusual. Put it through." The figure that appeared on their main screen was definitely humanoid, but unlike any species Elena had encountered. Tall and gaunt, with pale skin that seemed almost translucent, and eyes that were entirely black. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that suggested artificial enhancement. "Human vessel wanderer," it said without preamble, "you are interfering with authorized collection operations. Cease your investigations immediately and return to your home territory." Elena stepped forward, her military training taking over. "This is Captain Santos. Who am I speaking with, and what do you know about the missing children?" "We are collectors. The young ones you seek have been acquired for purposes beyond your understanding. They are being prepared for transcendence. Your interference threatens delicate procedures." Transcendence. Elena's voice was deadly quiet. "What the hell are you doing to them? Consciousness is finite in biological forms. We offer infinity. The young ones will become part of something greater than their limited individual existence." Maya pushed forward, her face twisted with rage. "Where is my sister? What have you done to Lily?" The being's black eyes turned toward her with something that might have been amusement. "The young human female with exceptional cognitive patterns? She shows great promise. Her consciousness will contribute significantly to the collective." Elena felt white-hot fury flooding through her veins. "If you've hurt her, hurt is a primitive concept. We do not hurt. We enhance. We elevate. We transform the limited into the unlimited." "Where are they?" "Everywhere. Nowhere. Being prepared. Do not interfere further. Humans, you cannot comprehend what we offer." The transmission ended, leaving the briefing room in stunned silence. "Well," said Commander Webb, "but the smart move would take weeks or months to organize an official response. And every day they waited was another day that Lily Chen and 846 other children remained in the hands of beings who talked about transcendence and consciousness." "Collection, Captain," Maya said quietly. "My sister is out there, along with hundreds of other kids who are probably scared and alone, and wondering why no one is coming for them." Elena nodded. "Then we'd better make sure someone does come for them." The next phase of their investigation took on a different character. Instead of following the trail of disappearances, they began hunting for the technology signatures that Dr. Fletcher had identified. The energy patterns were distinctive enough to track, but subtle enough that they'd been missed by every official investigation. It took for days of following faint sensor traces before they found it, a facility hidden in an asteroid field in the uninhabited Kappa Eridani system. From the outside, it looked like a mining operation. Dr. Fletcher's sensors told a very different story. Massive energy readings. He reported as they approached, "This isn't mining equipment. It's something else entirely." Elena studied the tactical display. The facility was well defended, but not impossible to penetrate. More importantly, her sensors were detecting life signs inside, multiple species, including several that matched the profiles of missing children. "This is it," she said quietly. "This is where they're holding them." The assault on the facility was swift and precise. Elena's team had trained for hostage rescue operations, and they moved through the complex with military efficiency. What they found inside would haunt them for the rest of their lives. 23 children from 8 different species, held in containment cells that looked more like laboratory equipment than prison cells. Each child was connected to monitoring devices that Elena didn't recognize, their neural activity being recorded and analyzed by computers beyond human understanding. Lily Chen was in the 3rd cell they checked, 8 years old, unconscious but alive, her small body connected to machines that were doing things to her brain that Dr. Fletcher couldn't begin to explain. "Get them out," Elena ordered, her voice tight with controlled rage. "All of them. Now, the rescue took 47 minutes. When it was over, 23 children were safe aboard the Wanderer, but the facility's computers had been wiped clean. Before they could access the data, they had saved some of the missing kids, but they still had no idea how many more facilities existed or where the other children might be held. As Maya held her unconscious sister in the ship's medical bay, Elena made a decision that would change everything. "We're not stopping," she announced to her crew. 23 kids saved, 824 still missing. "We keep looking until we find them all." Dr. Fletcher looked up from his examination of the rescued children. "Captain, these kids have been subjected to neural modification procedures. Some of them may never fully recover. And if there are more facilities like this one, then we find them and shut them down," Elena said simply. "All of them. Because that's what you do when children are in danger. You don't stop until they're safe." What Elena didn't know was that their rescue operation had triggered alarms throughout a network that spanned the galaxy. The beings who called themselves collectors had been operating for decades, taking children and transforming them into something that served their ancient purposes. And now, for the first time in their long existence, someone was fighting back. The rescued children began waking up 12 hours after the Wanderer departed the asteroid facility. Dr. Zara Okafor, the ship's medical officer, had seen trauma cases before, but nothing had prepared her for the hollow, distant look in these children's eyes. "They've been conditioned," she reported to Elena during the medical briefing. "Not just physically altered, but psychologically manipulated. Many of them don't remember their families or their home worlds. They've been taught that their previous existence was inferior." Elena studied the medical reports with growing horror. How many can be reversed? Unknown. The neural modifications are unlike anything in our medical database. We're essentially trying to undo alien brain surgery with tools designed for human physiology. "But you can try. We can try. But Captain, some of these changes, they might be permanent." Elena closed the files and walked to the observation deck, where Maya sat with her sister. Lily Chen was awake now, but the vibrant 8-year-old who had loved xenobiology and dreamed of understanding every species in the galaxy was gone. In her place was a quiet, distant child who spoke in clinical terms about optimization and neural efficiency. "She doesn't remember me," Maya said quietly as Elena approached, her own sister. "And she doesn't remember. The doctors think." "I know what the doctors think. But look at her, Elena. Really look at her. They didn't just change her brain. They changed her soul." Elena knelt beside the young girl, studying her face. Lily's eyes were the same warm brown they'd always been, but the light behind them was different, colder, more calculated. "Hello, Lily," Elena said gently. "How are you feeling?" "My designation is Neural Subject 847C," the girl replied in a perfectly level tone. "I am functioning within optimal parameters. Thank you for inquiring about my status." Maya turned away, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. "Lily," Elena tried again. "Do you remember your family? Your parents? Your sister Maya?" The girl tilted her head with bird-like precision. "I have been informed that I previously existed in a suboptimal biological family unit. This information has been cataloged, but is not relevant to my current function." Elena felt her heart breaking. This was what the collectors meant by transcendence, the systematic destruction of everything that made a child human, or Andorian, or Centaurian, or whatever species they happened to be. They were stealing souls and calling it improvement. "Captain," came a voice from the ship's communication system. "We're receiving multiple transmissions. You need to see this." Elena made her way to the bridge, where the communications officer was displaying a flood of incoming messages. The transmission from their encounter with the collectors had apparently been intercepted and broadcast across the galaxy's information networks. The first message was from a Rigel mother whose daughter had been missing for 2 weeks. "Captain Santos, please help us. My daughter Zara was taken, and the authorities say she's probably dead. But if humans are still looking." The second was from a Centaurian father on Alpha Centauri. "Human ship. My son Marcus has been gone for 8 days. I can pay whatever you need. Just please find him." The third was from an Andorian diplomat. "Captain Santos, We've received reports that you rescued Andorian children from some kind of facility. There are rumors of more missing kids. What can we do to help?" Elena read message after message, each one a desperate plea from parents who had been told by their own governments that their children were acceptable losses. The galaxy might have written off 847 missing kids as a statistical anomaly, but the families of those children had not. "How many messages?" she asked. "Over 3,000 so far, and they're still coming in. Captain, there are families from every major species offering whatever help they can provide. Ships, supplies, personnel, information." Elena felt a surge of something she hadn't experienced since this nightmare began: hope. Not just human hope, but galactic hope. Parents who refused to accept that their children were gone, regardless of what their governments told them. "Dr. Fletcher," she called to the xenobiologist, "can you establish communication protocols for multiple species? I want to coordinate with these families." "Already working on it." "Captain, there's something else." Several of the messages mention other rescue operations. Apparently, we're not the only ones who decided the official response was inadequate. Not just humans. There's a Vulcani ship called the Seeker that's been conducting independent searches. In the Procyon sector, an Andorian medical vessel has been investigating disappearances near Rigel. Even some Centaurian families have pooled resources to hire private security firms. Elena felt a glimmer of something she hadn't dared hope for. They weren't alone. The galaxy's governments might have abandoned these children, but their families hadn't. "Patch me through to all of them," she ordered. "It's time to coordinate this properly." The emergency conference that followed included representatives from 12 different species, all united by the simple fact that their children were missing, and their governments had given up looking. Elena found herself acting. "We've identified 17 potential facility locations based on energy signatures and missing persons reports," reported Captain Thelver of the Vulcani ship Seeker. "But we lack the resources to investigate them all simultaneously. My medical team has been analyzing the few children we've managed to recover," added Dr. Rixana, an Andorian physician. "The neural modifications are consistent across species. Someone has developed procedures that work on any type of consciousness." Elena studied the tactical display showing the suspected facilities scattered across the galaxy. "We need to move fast. Every day we wait is another day these kids are being modified. But we also need to be smart about this. If we hit one facility and they shut down the others before we can reach them, coordinated strikes," suggested Commander Webb. "Hit them all simultaneously before they can react." "With what forces?" asked Thelver. "We have perhaps 24 ships between all our groups. These facilities are heavily defended." "Then we get more ships," Elena said simply. "There are 3,000 families who have contacted us so far. If even a fraction of them can provide vessels or personnel." "Captain," Maya interrupted from her position at the communications console, "I'm receiving a priority transmission. It's from the Galactic Council." Elena felt her stomach clench. "Put it through." The image that appeared was Ambassador Kethmyra, but the ethereal's usual serene composure was strained. "Captain Santos, your unauthorized operations have created a significant diplomatic incident. Multiple governments are filing formal complaints about human vessels operating in their territory without permission." "Let me guess," Elena replied coldly. "The same governments that decided 847 missing children weren't worth looking for." "Captain, you must understand that your actions, however well-intentioned, are destabilizing established protocols. The Council has received reports of alien vessels joining your operations. This could escalate into a serious interspecies conflict." "Good," Elena said flatly. "Maybe a serious conflict is what it takes to get you people to care about missing children." Kethmyra's form flickered with what might have been frustration. "Captain, the Council is prepared to offer a compromise. Cease your unauthorized operations, and we will establish a formal task force to investigate the disappearances through proper channels." "How long? How long for what? How long to establish your task force? How long to get authorization? How long to actually start looking for these kids?" Kethmyra hesitated. "Such operations require careful planning." "Perhaps 6 to 8 months to organize properly. Elena felt the familiar rage building. Ambassador, let me explain something to you. We've rescued 23 children from one facility. They've been subjected to neural modification procedures that are designed to destroy their individual personalities and turn them into components of some kind of collective consciousness. Every day we waste on your proper channels is another day that 800 kids are being systematically tortured and transformed. Captain, surely you're exaggerating. Maya, Elena called without taking her eyes off the ambassador. Bring Lily to the bridge. A few moments later, Maya appeared with her sister. The 8-year-old girl walked with mechanical precision, her movements unnaturally controlled for a child her age. Lily, Elena said gently, can you tell the ambassador your name? My designation is Neural Subject 847C. The girl replied in her flat, emotionless tone. I am functioning within optimal parameters. Elena saw Kathmira's expression shift as she witnessed what the collectors had done to a human child. Lily, do you remember your family? I have been informed that I previously existed in a suboptimal biological family unit. This information has been catalogued, but is not relevant to my current function. The transmission went silent, even through the holographic connection. Elena could see that Kathmira was processing the implications of what she'd just witnessed. Ambassador, Elena said quietly, this is what your acceptable losses look like. This is what happens when we decide that some children don't matter enough to save. Kathmira's form stabilized, and when she spoke again, her voice carried harmonics Elena had never heard before. Captain Santos, the Council. We were not aware of the nature of the threat because you didn't look. You decided 800 missing kids was a statistical anomaly and moved on to more important things. What do you need? Elena blinked, caught off guard by the question. I need you to stop filing diplomatic complaints and start helping. I need access to military resources. I need permission to operate in sovereign space. And I need it now, not in 6 months. I'll convene an emergency session immediately. But Captain, even if the Council approves expanded operations, it will take time to organize. Then don't organize it, Elena interrupted. Just get out of our way. Let us do what we're already doing, and maybe help where you can. The transmission ended, leaving Elena staring at the blank screen. She wasn't sure whether to feel hopeful or skeptical about Kathmira's sudden change of heart. Captain, Dr. Fletcher called from his science station. I've been analyzing the facility we hit. The technology we found, it's definitely not of galactic origin. Meaning the collectors aren't just another species with advanced technology. There's something else entirely. Possibly extragalactic. Possibly something much older than our current civilizations. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How much older? Based on the energy signatures and manufacturing techniques, I'd estimate their technology is at least 50,000 years more advanced than anything we've encountered. 50,000 years. Maya repeated quietly. No wonder the local authorities couldn't track them. There's something else, Fletcher continued. The neural modification procedures they're using. They're not just random experiments. They're following a specific pattern, working toward a specific goal, which is based on the data I was able to extract before the facility's computers wiped themselves. I think they're trying to create a synthetic collective consciousness. They're taking the most gifted children from multiple species and combining their neural patterns into something new. Elena stared at him. You're saying they're building some kind of superbrain out of kidnapped children? Not exactly. More like they're trying to create artificial gods, beings with the cognitive abilities of multiple species, enhanced and combined. Through technological modification, the bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just dealing with kidnappers or even slave traders. They were facing beings who saw children as raw materials for creating artificial deities. How many children would they need? Elena asked quietly. For a project of this scope, thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Elena closed her eyes, thinking of the 847 missing children they knew about. If Fletcher was right, those kids were just the beginning. Captain, the communications officer called. I'm receiving transmissions from the other search groups. The Vulcani ship has found another facility. The Andorians have discovered what looks like a transport Hub, and there's something else. What? Ambassador Kethmyra is broadcasting a galaxy-wide emergency session of the Council. She's calling for immediate military support for search and rescue operations. Elena felt a spark of hope. Are they actually going to help? We'll know in a few hours. But Captain, there's already been a response from the Human Colonial Defense Force. Admiral Harrison is deploying 3 battle groups to support our operations. Elena's breath caught. Admiral Harrison had been her commanding officer during the Titan liberation. If he was committing battle groups to support unauthorized rescue operations, it meant the CDI had decided that saving children was more important than diplomatic protocol. What about the other species? Still waiting for responses. But Captain, the Vulcani Defense Ministry has issued a statement supporting all necessary measures to recover missing children. The Andorian Diplomatic Corps has authorized military cooperation with human forces. Elena looked round the bridge at her crew, humans and aliens united by their refusal to abandon lost children. All right, people, it looks like we're not alone anymore. Let's use that support to hit these bastards where it hurts. The coordinated assault on the collector facilities began 72 hours. Later, Elena had never seen anything like it. Ships from a dozen different species working together with a level of cooperation that the galaxy's official military forces had never achieved. The Wanderer led the assault on a massive facility hidden in the Cygnus Nebula. As they approached, Elena could see that this wasn't just another research station. It was a full-scale processing center designed to handle hundreds of children. Simultaneously, life signs confirmed, Dr. Fletcher reported. Multiple species, ages consistent with our missing children profiles. Captain, there are over 300 life signs in that facility. Elena's heart raced. 300 children, if they could save them all units. Commence assault, she ordered. Remember, those kids have been through hell. Let's bring them home. The battle for the facility was fierce but brief. The collectors had clearly not expected coordinated resistance, and their defenses crumbled under the combined assault of multiple species working together. But as Elena's boarding teams penetrated the facility, they found something that made her blood run cold. The children were connected to a massive neural network, their minds linked together through technology that defied understanding. Many of them were conscious but unresponsive, their personalities submerged beneath artificial programming. My God, Dr. Okafor whispered as she examined the neural interface system. They're not just modifying individual children, they're connecting them all together, creating some kind of hive mind. Elena stared at the rows of children, each one connected to machines that were slowly erasing their individual identities. Some of them looked peaceful, as if they were simply sleeping. Others showed signs of distress, their faces twisted in expressions of fear or confusion. Can we disconnect them safely? I don't know. The neural interfaces are deeply integrated. Removing them incorrectly could cause permanent brain damage or death. Elena felt the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Leave the children connected and risk losing them to the collective's programming, or try to free them and risk killing them in the process. Do what you can, she decided. Save who you can save, but we can't leave them like this. The evacuation of the facility took 6 hours. In the end, they saved 217 children, but 53 were too deeply integrated into the neural network to be safely disconnected. Elena had to make the hardest decision of her military career, leaving children behind, because trying to save them would kill them. As the Wanderer departed the destroyed facility, Elena stood in the medical bay watching Dr. Okafor work frantically to help the rescued children. Some were responding well to treatment, their personalities beginning to emerge from beneath the collector programming. Others remained distant and unresponsive, possibly changed forever. Captain, Maya approached, her face showing the strain. Of the past weeks, I've been monitoring the other assault teams. They hit 6 facilities simultaneously. Total rescue count is over 800 children. Elena felt a surge of hope. 800. We found almost all of them, most of them. But Captain, there's something else. The facilities we hit were just the processing centers. Dr. Fletcher thinks there's a central command facility somewhere else. The place where they're building their artificial collective consciousness, using the children they've already processed, using the children they couldn't save. Elena closed her eyes, thinking of the 53 kids they'd left behind. They weren't dead, but they weren't alive in any meaningful sense either. They were components in an alien machine designed to create artificial gods. Do we know where this central facility is? We're working on it. But Captain, even if we find it, the children there may be too far gone to save. Elena opened her eyes, looking out at the rescued children, who were slowly beginning to remember who they used to be. Then we make sure the ones responsible pay for what they've done. What Elena didn't know was that their rescue operations had accomplished something that no government or military force had achieved in galactic history. They had united multiple species around a common emotional cause. The sight of children being systematically tortured and transformed had awakened something in the galaxy's civilized populations that bureaucratic protocol had tried to suppress. The age of calculated indifference was ending. The age of emotional action had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's history. Representatives from every major species had gathered not to debate policy or negotiate treaties, but to watch recordings of the rescue operations and bear witness to what the collectors had done to their children. Ambassador Kethmyra stood at the center of the assembly, her ethereal form flickering with emotions that her species had supposedly transcended millennia ago. Round her, beings from across the galaxy struggled to process images that challenged everything they thought they knew about civilized behavior. The rescued children are being treated at medical facilities throughout human space, she reported to the assembly. Initial examinations confirm that they were subjected to systematic neural modification procedures designed to erase individual consciousness and integrate their minds into a collective entity. Senator Vexitl of the Centaurian Republic leaned forward, his blue features pale with shock. How many children were affected? 847 initial disappearances. Additional children were discovered during rescue operations, bringing the total to over 1,200. Of these, approximately 300 have been successfully rescued and are responding to treatment. And the others? Kethmyra's form dimmed. The others are either deceased or have been too extensively modified to be safely disconnected from the collector systems. A ripple of horror passed through the assembly. These were beings who had lived for centuries, who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, who thought they were beyond being shocked by the actions of sentient creatures. They were wrong. The human-led rescue operations have identified the source of these atrocities. Kethmyra continued. The entities responsible call themselves collectors and appear to represent a technological civilization far in advance of anything in our galaxy. Their stated goal is the creation of artificial collective consciousness entities, using the neural patterns of kidnapped children. This is an act of war, declared General Hixmera of the Vulcani Defense Ministry. These creatures have declared war on our children. I call for immediate military response. Agreed, came voices from across the assembly. For perhaps the first time in galactic history, there was unanimous agreement on a course of action. But Ambassador Kethmyra held up a hand for silence. There's something else, something that should shame us all. The assembly quieted, waiting. The humans who organized these rescue operations requested our help weeks ago. They came to us when the disappearances first began, asking for resources and authorization to search for missing children. We refused. The silence that followed was heavy with collective guilt. We told them that 800 missing children was statistically insignificant. We told them that resource allocation did not justify large-scale search operations. We told them that the children were probably dead anyway. Kethmyra's form brightened with what could only be described as shame. The humans searched anyway, without our authorization, without our resources, without our support. They risked their careers, their freedom, their lives to save children that their own government had no obligation to protect. She gestured to a holographic display showing the rescued children receiving medical treatment. While we debated cost-benefit analysis and resource allocation, human mothers and fathers were risking everything to find other species' lost children. While we calculated acceptable losses, humans were proving that no loss is acceptable when children are involved. The assembly remained silent, processing the implications of their collective failure. The question before us now, Kethmyra continued, is not whether we should help with the remaining rescue operations. The question is whether we deserve to call ourselves civilized when we needed primitives to teach us how to care about our own children. The debate that followed was brief and decisive. Within hours, every major galactic civilization had committed military resources to support the search for remaining collector facilities. The largest joint military operation in galactic history was organized not to fight territorial wars or trade disputes, but to save kidnapped children. Elena received word of the Council's decision as the Wanderer docked at Luna Station for resupply. She was exhausted, having spent the past 72 hours coordinating rescue operations across multiple star systems, but the news brought a surge of energy she hadn't felt in weeks. They're actually helping, Maya reported, reading the official dispatch. Full military authorization, unlimited resources, priority status for all search operations. What changed their minds? According to Ambassador Kethmyra, they finally watched the recordings from the rescue operations. They saw what was being done to the children, and they couldn't ignore it anymore. Elena nodded, but her satisfaction was tempered by the knowledge that it had taken absolute horror to motivate the galaxy's civilized governments to care about missing children. How many kids could have been saved if they'd acted weeks ago when the disappearances first began? Captain, Dr. Fletcher called from the ship's science station. I've finished analyzing the data we recovered from the processing facilities. I think I know where their central command is located. Elena turned to face him. Where? It's not in our galaxy. The energy signatures point to a location in the void between galaxies, based on the technological requirements for their consciousness integration project. They'd need massive processing power and complete isolation from outside interference. How long to reach it? With conventional hyperspace drives, several months. But Captain, the power requirements for their project suggest they've been working on this for decades, possibly centuries. The children they've taken over the years, they're all there. Elena felt her heart clench. Hundreds, maybe thousands of children from across galactic history, all transformed into components of an alien machine designed to create artificial gods. Then we go there, she said simply, all of us, and we shut it down. Captain, Maya said quietly, the children who are still connected to their system, they may be too far integrated to save. Then we save who we can and make sure this never happens again. Elena was about to continue when her communicator chimed with an incoming priority message. The image that appeared was Admiral Harrison, her former commanding officer and current head of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Elena, he said without preamble, I've just finished briefing the Galactic Military Command. They want you to lead the Joint Task Force, sir. The operation to locate and destroy the Central Collector Facility. Every major species has committed their best ships and crews, but they want human command. Specifically, they want you. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Admiral, I'm not sure I'm qualified to command a galactic military operation. Elena, you organized the largest rescue operation in galactic history, using volunteer crews and civilian ships. You saved hundreds of children that the galaxy's governments had written off as acceptable losses. If that doesn't qualify you to command this operation, nothing does. The transmission ended, leaving Elena staring at the blank screen. In a matter of weeks, she had gone from being a frustrated captain, but the galactic forces had something the collectors hadn't anticipated. They were fighting for their children. Every ship in the fleet was crewed by beings who had seen the recordings of what the collectors did to kidnapped kids. They weren't fighting for territory or resources or political advantage. They were fighting to save the innocent. Breach teams go. Elena ordered as the fleet's weapons created openings in the facility's hull. Remember, we're looking for children. Everything else is secondary. The battle inside the facility was unlike anything Elena had ever experienced. The collectors themselves were ancient beings of pure energy, capable of manipulating matter and consciousness with thought alone, but they had never faced an enemy motivated by parental love. Elena's team fought their way through corridors that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneous, following Dr. Fletcher's readings toward the facility's central consciousness integration chamber. What they found there would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Thousands of children from hundreds of species, their minds linked together in a vast neural network that pulsed with alien intelligence. Some of them were recent additions, their individual personalities still struggling against the collective programming. Others had been integrated so completely that only their physical forms remained. And at the center of it all was something that had once been a child. Elena couldn't tell what species, but was now something else entirely, a being of pure consciousness that spoke with the voices of all the stolen children, ancient and recent. Their personalities blended into something that was both individual and collective. We are what they were meant to become, it said, its voice carrying harmonics from 1,000 different species. We are infinity. We are transcendence. We are everything they could have been if they had not been limited by biological existence. Elena stared at the entity that had once been children like Lily Chen, like the kids playing safely on Earth, like her own daughters. You're an abomination. We are evolution. We are the future of consciousness itself. You're a machine built from stolen souls. The entity's form shifted, taking on aspects of different species as it spoke. Souls are primitive concepts. We have transcended such limitations. We offer infinity to those trapped in finite existence. Elena raised her weapon, knowing it was probably useless against a being of pure consciousness. We're taking our children back. You cannot take what has chosen to stay. We are no longer what we were. We are what we were meant to become. The battle that followed was fought on multiple levels, physical, mental, and spiritual. Elena's team fought to disconnect as many children as possible from the neural network, while the entity that had been created from their stolen consciousness tried to stop them. In the end, they saved 437 children from the most recent integrations. The others, thousands upon thousands of kidnapped kids from across galactic history, were too far gone to be saved. They had become something else entirely. Their individual personalities lost forever in a collective consciousness that claimed to offer them immortality. Elena stood in the facility's central chamber as her teams prepared to destroy it, watching the entity that had once been children flicker between different forms. Is there anything left of them? She asked quietly. Anything of who they used to be? The entity paused, and for just a moment, Elena thought she saw something familiar in its shifting features. A flash of fear, a glimmer of longing, the faintest echo of a child crying for home. We remember, it said, its voice suddenly uncertain. We remember being small. We remember being afraid. We remember wanting to go home. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. Do you want to go home now? The entity's form stabilized into something that looked almost human. A child of indeterminate age with eyes that held the weight of eons. We cannot go home. We are no longer what home would recognize. But we choose this. We choose to be free. Elena nodded. Understanding. Then we'll make sure you are. The destruction of the collector facility sent shockwaves across multiple dimensions. Elena and her teams barely escaped as the massive structure collapsed into itself, taking with it the artificial consciousness that had been built from millions of stolen children. It was, Elena reflected as she watched the facility die, both a victory and a tragedy. They had saved hundreds of children and ensured that no more would be taken. But they had also been forced to destroy what remained of countless kids who had been kidnapped across millennia, their only choice being to grant them the peace of oblivion. As the Galactic Task Force returned home, Elena stood in the Wanderers' medical bay watching Dr. Okafor work with the rescued children. Some were responding well, their personalities emerging from beneath the collector programming. Others remained distant and changed, possibly forever affected by their ordeal. Lily Chen was among those who were recovering, Maya's sister still, spoke in clinical terms sometimes, and she had nightmares about being connected to machines. But the spark of curiosity that had made her want to understand every species in the galaxy was slowly returning. She asked about her xenobiology books today, Maya reported, her face bright with hope for the first time in weeks. She wants to know if we saved any alien children too. Elena smiled. Tell her we saved lots of them, children from dozens of different species, all going home to their families. What about the ones we couldn't save? Elena's expression grew somber. Tell her that we made sure they're at peace now, and that no other children will be taken because people from across the galaxy decided that protecting kids is more important than anything else. The aftermath of the collector crisis reshaped galactic civilization in ways that no one had anticipated. For the first time in history, emotional bonds rather than economic calculations had driven major policy decisions. The sight of children being systematically tortured and transformed had awakened something in the galaxy's population that bureaucratic protocol had tried to suppress. New institutions were established, the Galactic Child Protection Agency, funded by every major civilization and staffed primarily by humans who had proven their dedication to protecting vulnerable young beings. Elena found herself appointed as the agency's first director, a position that allowed her to ensure that no child's disappearance would ever again be dismissed as an acceptable loss. The memorial service was held on Luna Station with representatives from every species that had lost children to the collectors. It was a somber ceremony, marking both the children who had been saved and those who had been lost forever. Elena stood before the assembled crowd, looking out at faces that represented dozens of different species united by shared grief and shared determination. We gather today not just to mourn the children we lost, but to celebrate the ones we saved, she began. 437 young beings who are alive today, because people from across the galaxy decided that protecting children is more important than economic calculations or diplomatic protocol. She paused, thinking of the entity that had once been children, choosing freedom through oblivion rather than continued existence as components in an alien machine. We also remember those we couldn't save, not just the recent victims, but the countless children who were taken across millennia of collector operations. They are at peace now, and their sacrifice has ensured that no other children will suffer as they did. Elena gestured to the mixed crowd of humans and aliens who had participated in the rescue operations. But most importantly, we remember what we learned during this crisis. We learned that when children are in danger, species boundaries don't matter. We learned that protecting the innocent is not a political calculation, but a moral imperative. We learned that sometimes the most advanced thing you can do is care about someone other than yourself. As the ceremony concluded and the representatives returned to their home worlds, Elena remained on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was a different place now, one where missing children would never again be dismissed as statistical anomalies, where protecting the young was recognized as the highest priority of any civilized society. Ambassador Keth Myra joined her at the viewport, her ethereal form more solid and somehow more real than Elena had ever seen it. Captain Santos, she said quietly, I wanted to thank you. For what? For teaching us how to be human. Elena looked at her, confused. You're not human. None of the rescued children are human. We weren't trying to make anyone human, no, Keth Myra agreed. But you showed us what humanity means. You showed us that caring for others, especially those who can't protect themselves, isn't a primitive emotional response. It's the most advanced form of consciousness possible. Elena nodded, understanding. The children we saved, they're going to grow up in a different galaxy than the one they were born into. One where protecting kids is more important than protecting profits, because of you. Because humans refused to accept that missing children were acceptable losses. Elena thought of Lily Chen, slowly recovering her curiosity about alien species, of Maya, who had risked everything to save her sister. of the hundreds of volunteers who had given up their comfortable lives to search for other people's children, not just humans, she said finally, everyone who decided that children matter more than anything else. That's what changed the galaxy. As Elena stood there, watching the stars that now seemed a little brighter and a little safer, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The galaxy's children were protected now. No species would ever again be allowed to dismiss missing kids as statistical anomalies. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between galaxies, the consciousness that had been built from stolen children was finally at peace, their sacrifice ensuring that no other young beings would suffer as they had. The age of acceptable losses was over. The age of protected childhood had begun. And it had all started with humans who refused to accept that someone else's children didn't matter.